Hey, what's going on,
Hey
guys?
guys, welcome back.
Joe here,
Hello, Kevin.
and some of you guys might be new to this video. If you are new, thank you for clicking the link.
Thank you.
And we are Watch This with Joe and Kevin.
Hello. We do watch alongs with a lot of television shows on our channel. We're currently doing The West Wing,
Schitt's Creek,
Schitt's Creek,
Ted Lasso,
Mad Men,
Mad Men. There's a lot of stuff.
Fleabag.
Yeah,
Yeah, we're wrapping up a lot of these shows now. We're working our way through them.
yeah.
We're definitely not wrapping up The West Wing anytime soon.
No.
But we did watch this show independently on our own. We're not going to be doing it on the channel, obviously, because we've seen it. But
Yeah.
we did want to talk about our thoughts on what we think is a culturally significant television
Yeah,
show this year.
it's a big deal.
The HBO's The Last of Us, which we both watched in real time as it was going on HBO.
Yeah.
And so
It's
this is
like you said, it is culturally like a big deal. I mean,
right.
it's the game has been around for what 10 years now, I think.
No idea. I am not really a gamer. I've not played the game. You have.
Yeah, I played it when it first came out.
Right. So
10 years ago, 2013 is when it came out. So yeah.
yeah. So we're coming at it from different perspectives. Mine just from the watching the television show. Kind of in isolation, away from the game as a show itself. And Joe's coming from someone who's played the game and watched the show. Um, so this is going to be a spoiler review. So if you have not watched the show yet,
Yeah.
I would probably not watch this because
Probably
we're not leaving stuff out.
If you're one of the three people that hasn't seen the show yet, do yourself a favor and check it out because it is good. I mean, I know that most video game adaptations are not regarded well, but this one is actually pretty incredible.
Yeah, I'd go on a limb to say almost all video game. I can't think of a good one really. I'd say almost all video game adaptations are pure garbage. Is a nice way to put it.
The Bob Hopkins Mario movie.
You're right. Jean-Claude Van Damme Street Fighter.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
Doom. They're all crap.
Yeah, they're not great. They're not great at all.
Yeah,
But,
the Mortal Kombat movies are terrible.
This didn't feel like a video game like property. So the game itself is not like traditionally like a normal shoot 'em up video game. Like obviously there's zombies and like you got to use like fun weapons and all that fun stuff too. But I mean it's a sad game. Like the show and the game.
That's what I've heard from
very
you and
much
others.
about despair,
Right.
And one thing I will say that they changed the most about from the game is I feel like the tone of it is spot on, but the show feels a little more hopeful than the game does. And I don't know if that's because like throughout the game it's way longer than the show is, and you're just killing the entire time, and it's like
right. That makes sense. Yeah,
you're just kind of trudging through it sometimes. Great game, great time, but like it's still like emotionally like kind of draining.
Sure.
The show felt a little more hopeful.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I'm misreading that, but like it does feel like there's a little bit of hope for humanity in the show.
Well, what's interesting to me about the show was I was expecting a zombie show, right?
And
it was actually refreshingly sparse. There weren't a lot of zombies in the show.
I've been seeing that's a lot of people are complaining about that, but I kind of like it.
I again, as someone who hasn't played the game, I had no problems with it.
Yeah.
We've seen a million zombie shows. I feel like if you want to watch a show where it's people that have to kill a million zombies, there's not. Go watch every Resident Evil movie or watch The Walking Dead, one of the Walking Dead series. There's several of them now. Mm-hmm. I don't feel like there's any shortage of that, you know, or a million movies in the last 20 years.
And that's probably the most interesting part of The Walking Dead too. Is not the zombie aspect; it's the dynamic of the survivors. You know,
yeah, completely.
And that's what we want to see. I mean, because that's the realistic part of
that's the interesting part of the whole thing is
yeah.
What happens to mankind after this kind of event happens.
Yeah, right.
We could have had more zombie stuff, sure, and maybe that would it would have been fun. It would have been interesting, but Dame Judi Dench. Yeah, I like the fact that we focus more on the people really than the zombies. We created a world that had zombies in it, but they weren't the most important thing.
It's not like a Romero thing.
Yeah, exactly, completely right.
And the zombies, when we did get them, were actually like really interesting.
It made the moments we did have them that much better.
Slightly different from the game. Yeah, exactly. Like it's kind of like the Jaws thing. You know, in Jaws they don't show the shark.
Right.
They showed way more of the zombies than they do in Jaws, obviously. But we're just saying like they did keep it sparse, and we did get them in most of the episodes. I think there was only 2 episodes where they didn't show up.
Sure, but they were pretty sparse.
Yeah, and it was cool when they were on screen, and it was terrifying when it needed to be, and it got your blood pumping. That's for sure.
Right. I really feel like episode 2.
Oh yeah,
was our only real zombie episode, you know?
That one and oh man, I'm blanking right now. It was the one.
Oh, the one in Kansas City.
Kansas City.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Right,
yeah,
where
episode 5.
They were kind of the Deus Ex Machina.
That was the big action.
At the end of episode 5. But for the most part, we didn't have a lot of zombie stuff, and I kind of like that.
I know, and
the threat of them being there was always hanging over the show.
Right? Yeah, because you're always a little like, oh my god, there's a zombie there, you know. But even in the last episode, it starts off with a pretty pretty compelling chase scene with a zombie, you know.
Sure.
And I thought, by the way, that actress, Ellie's mom, that's Ellie in the game.
Yep. Oh, is it?
Yeah, that's the voice actress, and I think all the voice actors for the characters in The Last of Us show up in the show at one point in time.
In different roles and stuff. Yeah.
Tommy, the brother, he is the bearded guy in Kansas City.
Mm-hmm.
Eileen, is that her name?
Yeah.
That's her right hand man. Joel is obviously David in the show,
right?
The creepy guy's buddy, and then yeah, obviously we already said Ellie's mom is
right
too.
So episodes.
Yeah.
What stood out to you episode wise? What hangs with you?
I mean, I think I'm with the rest of the world when I say that 3.
Episode 3 absolutely crushed me.
I did like 6, where Joel sees Tommy and that's where he gets his injury. I like that one a lot, but episode 3 is incredible.
Yeah, episode 3 was it's going to be hard in 2023 for another television episode to top that one. I know we've still got like 9 months left.
And I know
but
a lot of you are probably tired of people talking about episode 3 of The Last of Us because we see it everywhere now. But it's true, guys. Like it's going to be overrated here soon. But at the same time, it was so well crafted and so well made. I'm getting a little emotional just thinking about it because of how good it was, I don't see how that doesn't sweep the Emmys and the Golden Globes.
Right, yeah. When it comes time for the Emmys, I think Nick Offerman is probably going to walk away with the guest starring Emmy on the series.
And his co-star.
I always forget his name. The guy from the White Lotus.
I'm gonna look it up real fast. Yeah. He was fantastic as well.
They were both fantastic, but I think Offerman wins it because his job was harder. He had the harder role.
He was the star of the episode,
right?
Sure.
Right. They both just absolutely killed it. It was a beautiful episode of television. I was watching with a couple of people, and I was trying not to let them see that I was weeping like a little girl, like something in my eye.
Murray Bartlett.
Murray Bartlett. That's right. But. Oh my God, was that a good episode of television?
And it goes to show that, like, most of these video game movies and shows, when you play a video game, you expect the big action, like the big moments. It's the little personal moments in this show that really, really make it shine.
Yeah.
And that's true to the game as well. The game is very well written. It's very well directed. And it does play like a movie. And it doesn't surprise me that for the last 10 years they've been trying to make it into a movie. But I think TV is perfect for that because you can spend a whole episode on characters like Bill and Frank.
You know what? And except for like a 1 4-second moment, there were no zombies in that episode. It was not a zombie episode at all.
Yeah, I think the only zombie we really saw was when he's
the one that comes up to the fence when he's eating dinner. He gets killed by a booby trap, and that's it.
One of the best instances of humor in the show too.
Yeah, never gets old.
We'd be remiss if we didn't talk about Pedro Pascal and Bella Ramsey too.
Yeah.
Whereas Offerman, I think, is going to win the best guest appearance Emmy, and so with Murray Bartlett, he's probably going to get nominated as well. I think that Pedro Pascal is definitely going to get nominated.
I do too.
If not win, because this is probably his best performance.
Yeah, he really crushed this show.
It's really funny that he's got 2 different shows right now about like journeys with like a child.
Yeah, it's true, right? Got that in The Mandalorian. Yeah,
it's kind of ruined The Mandalorian for me too. I tried to watch the latest episode of The Mandalorian after The Last of Us, and I was like, this is just tonally so different.
Oh, completely. Right, but you still hear his voice.
Yeah. And Bella Ramsey, who apparently is on Game of Thrones. I didn't watch all of it yet, but I know what happens.
Yeah, she's a small but memorable role on Game of Thrones in the last couple of seasons.
How does she compare in this to that? Basically?
Well, I mean, she was a little kid, obviously. More of a little kid on Game of Thrones, but she was great on Game of Thrones. Everyone loved her character a lot.
Sure.
She crushed it. And obviously that wasn't a starring role, right? It was a bit role that she maybe had 25 lines total on the show, maybe.
But memorable enough to where she gets
very memorable, absolutely. And then getting a starring role here, and she was great on this. She was so charismatic. They both were. The chemistry between the 2 of them is amazing. I am so glad that I was worried that one of them might die
in the show
because I don't know the games.
Sure.
And one of them carry on, you know what I mean, on the show forward. Sure. And it's like I kind of like the idea of that chemistry still being there. I'm kind of glad that they both made it for that reason, if nothing else.
That's a really good point, because it was very faithful to the game, but they did change a couple things.
Sure.
In the last episode, I did hear they're going to make a big change, and I was worried.
I
was watching it. I was like, is somebody going to die?
Right, yeah, yeah.
And for this being a story that most people know, for them to play with your emotions and like keeping suspense like that, brilliant.
Well, yeah, a lot of people were bothered early on, like in episode 3, right? The Frank and Bill story apparently is different enough that it bothers some people. I don't know what is in the game. I don't really care.
It's not expanded upon,
right? But I like the fact that they did it because that signals for the rest of the show, hey, people watching, we can change anything we want. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that needs to be there. It can't just be the game.
I don't understand why people get upset by that kind of stuff. Like they're not changing the game. This is an adaptation.
Right.
You're not directly putting the game on screen.
Sure.
If you want the game, play the game again. But they're playing with it a little differently. And
Right.
I like that Neil Druckmann, who directed the game, he wrote the game, is involved in the TV show. I think that lends itself to it very well. And it's not really they're changing things; they're expanding upon things in the show.
Even if they did, I don't. Like I said, I don't. Even if I'd play the game, I wouldn't really care because you don't want to just watch the video game. I would
No,
imagine
sure.
doing that. Like episode 8, where Ellie goes on her feral murder spree, which I loved episode 8. I thought it was a great episode.
Yeah.
I thought that the guest actors were tremendous
Yes.
all the way through.
Very creepy.
Yeah, it was incredibly well done. And a lot of people were upset because in the game, I guess Ellie uses a bow and arrow in that scene
yeah.
to kill, and people were
Yes.
upset about that. And I'm like, with what we saw from the first 7 episodes, what would have made sense for her to grab a bow and arrow and start killing people?
That would have been the most unrealistic thing because
It would have been stupid.
I don't know if you guys ever shot bow and arrows before.
It's not easy.
Yeah, we live in a place where there's like a lot of country around us, so like growing up, we've used them. It's not like a video game.
No.
And it's not practical at all.
It's not
you know what I mean?
practical. It's
you're
hard.
running for your life.
A girl that small drawing a 50-pound bow. I mean, come on, you know.
And it's not even like a legit compound bow like in the game. It's like
an old
like a
school.
wooden
Yeah,
bow.
right.
Yeah. It's cool. It looks cool.
But I think it just made more sense for her to awkwardly be using a gun that she just learned how to use. There is no reason that a bow and arrow would have made sense there.
And that it works in the game because the game is much more stealth oriented.
Sure.
There's sequences where you want to go stealth mode and
Right.
all that stuff, you know, and it's fun. It's a fun, tense dynamic for the game. But for like a theatrical or television experience, you have to switch it up. I mean,
right.
I don't know. I mean, I almost said like a bow and arrow is not theatrical. But it's pretty theatrical.
It's theatrical, but it just wouldn't have made sense. I would have been like, what the hell is going on?
No,
If she
yeah.
started shooting people with a bow and arrow.
I think they really wanted to keep this grounded.
Yeah, that
For
was
a
much
video
more
game,
grounded. Right.
It's grounded, but for a television show, this is very grounded. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. They weren't going for anything ironic or fantastical in terms of, look how video gamey this is in the TV show.
They did a little bit, I feel like, in episode 5 in Kansas City when the big boss
Oh,
guy
right,
comes out.
sure, right.
But that was really it, honestly.
That was it.
And that was a really cool sequence.
It was a cool sequence. It fit with what was going on.
I mean, after episode 4, I liked episode 4. I liked every episode. But after the 4th episode, I felt like we needed that adrenaline rush.
Yeah.
And, yeah, it was great. I mean, I have no complaints about the show, really. The only like criticism is like, there wasn't a whole lot of the infected, but I was fine with what we got. And the changes they made, I don't know if I'm the only one in this, but just the way they ran and the way they like kind of shot the zombies every once in a while, it kind of reminded me of World War Z.
Sure.
Not saying that's my favorite movie or anything, but it just kind of took me out of it for a second. But that's a small nitpick, honestly.
Right.
And the effects on the zombies are fantastic. Also, the effects on like just where they're at.
Yeah.
I was kind of like, how did they do that?
Production design, I do want to give a shout out to because the way everything looked with like nature retaking everything looked great. It looked realistic. It kept it grounded, and it really just gave that really feel of a lost world. And I loved it so much.
And you can tell it's definitely like a real set mixed with CG.
Sure.
And you just bought it.
Yeah, there was green screen, but it was done so well. Like the lighting was done so well that it wasn't like when we watched Moonfall and the bad green screening made me want to punch it in the face. This didn't. This looked so good and seamless.
We watched Moonfall about almost a year ago now, I guess.
You have some of the summer, I think.
So if you guys want to check that, you can check it on the channel.
So bad.
Yeah, best movie ever.
But at any rate, I think we talked long enough. It's a great show.
We should give it a rating. This is our first review here, so we're gonna figure out how we want to rate this.
I don't know. Do you want to go stars or letter grade
10?
or what?
You want to go 10 or 5? 5 stars at a.
No, let's go. Let's go 1 to 10 rating. Where'd you give it?
9.
I'd give it a solid 8.5. I really liked it. Which when we start talking 10 shows, I'm talking like The West Wing or Sopranos. The greatest shows of all time kind of stuff.
And you know what? With reviews too, like this is recency bias too.
Right, of course.
It can also grow.
Right.
Like a year can go by and I'm like, you know what? That was a 10 out of 10 show. But for now, it's a 9.
Hey, Citizen Kane was not that popular when Citizen Kane came out, and now it's considered one of the best movies of all time.
It came out, people were like, that's all right.
Yeah, it's cool. All right, thanks, guys. We'll catch you later.